joining a large training event for paddlers. What's the value of that and what is it like? Well, if you're a paddler who's actually been to a large event like that, it might be self-explanatory. It could be great for a number of reasons. But for many paddlers, this might not be something that they've experienced actually. And in this video, I will be using a kayak festival in Stensund on the east coast of Sweden, organized by the Swedish Outdoor Association, Friluftsfrämjandet, back in September 2025 as an example. So this was a great event over 3 days, and I was actually there in several capacities. First, because I am a volunteer kayak leader in the Swedish Outdoor Association, Friluftsfrämjandet. I'm also the lead coordinator for kayak leaders in my local association, Friluftsfrämjandet Norrviken, which in Swedish is called grenledare kayak, or grenledare vatten och paddling. So basically what that means is I'm elected as a functionary who helps coordinate other kayak leaders and all of the activities that the association has with kayaking activities across a year. So that can be quite exciting, but those of you who have followed me on my channel will have seen those kinds of activities in other videos. So I won't talk so much about that. It's just one of the reasons why I was there. But this leadership event, or actually a kayak event open to kayakers in general in the Swedish Outdoor Association primarily, is organized annually, and this location, Stensund, which is not more than a couple of hours southwest of Stockholm, is actually a great location for that. You're on the Baltic Sea and you have some sheltered areas where you can easily organize kayaking activities, and in this video I will show what this year's event was like and some points on what this might be in terms of value for a paddler, what you might experience and what you can take home. Because for those who haven't had the privilege yet to basically see an event like this or join an event like this, it might be of interest. And for those who have, it might be of interest to see how this is done in Sweden. And for some, of course, who have been to this event before or who are actually here this year, it might be really interesting to see what this event was like. Some might actually recognize themselves. So in addition to being there just as a kayak leader or a coordinator of kayak leaders, for basically representing my local association, I also was there actually to film the event for the Swedish Outdoor Association, Friluftsfrämjandet. So I and Jon, another paddler, who you might recognize from some of my earlier videos on this channel, we were actually asked to go here and help film the event, and from my side I was also asked to provide a number of workshops in paddling safety and proactive safety efforts when it comes to organizing paddling events, because safety is very important as a kayak leader, and it's very much something that's focused on in the Swedish Outdoor Association activities, Friluftsfrämjandet, regardless of whether it's kayaking or other activities like skiing or mountain biking or hiking or activities in the forest for kids or for adults or whatever it might be. So anyway, that's why I was there. And before going on with further information about the conference, I'll actually mention Carl Crawford, who was actually the functionary from the national office of the Swedish Outdoor Association, who asked me to join both for filming and for these safety workshops, because we had some great conversations on that. So thank you, Carl. And Carl actually recently left the Swedish Outdoor Association after many years. In fact, I think it was 25 years in the Swedish Outdoor Association, which is an amazing feat, and so much that actually has been brought to the outdoor community through that. So you might have seen him also in the canoe symposium, the canoe training event that took place previous year, where I and Jon were also filming, and this was also thanks to Carl in part representing the Swedish Outdoor Association, and also Per, another of the organizers, representing other organizations there as well. So basically, thanks for the invite, and as part of the organization, this was really great. But anyway, when it comes to what you can get out of an event like this, as a paddler, in this case, it's open both for kayak leaders, and it's intended also for kayakers in general, in the Swedish Outdoor Association primarily, but also with the keeping in mind that they might want to become kayak leaders eventually. So what you can learn during an event like this, and let's look at this particular kayaking event. Obviously there might be similar events near you when it comes to stand-up paddleboarding or canoeing or whatever it is. In this case it's kayaking, and there basically was so much there, so much value. The first part is actually just networking. When it comes to meeting other paddlers, other kayak leaders in this case, or experienced kayakers, and actually kayakers in a wide range of their level of development. Some have been there for decades and have a huge amount of experience. Some are basically experts in their fields. Some are staff from the Swedish Outdoor Association. Most are volunteer leaders or kayakers in general with a lot of experience. And some are there actually relatively early on in their journey and looking to learn skills. So that's one part, the networking and all of the ideas and inspiration and knowledge that you can receive from other paddlers, and hearing about their experience and their activities and their ideas and their approaches to things, and also tips on whatever it might be in terms of technique and technical skills and so forth. And that's of course the other part, what you get to practice. In this case, there were different workshops all across the days, so people could join a number of workshops. Some joined my workshops on safety, but most of the workshops were of course about technical skills such as rolling or rescues or paddling skills in general, paddling technique, or about sustainability and environment or coaching. It was also about leadership and basically how you manage groups effectively on the water in general. But when it comes to rolling and particular techniques, there is basically so much you can learn from other paddlers. In this case, we had calm weather. It was not all that sunny. We had some sun, but we had reasonable temperatures, and it wasn't too windy, so it was good for learning and practicing. It would be a lot less fun if you were in, let's say, a full rain and it's cold and whatever. In this case, we had decent weather, which is good. But of course, if you do get bad weather, it's also good for the learning experience, because you need to be prepared for that. In this case, of course, because many people would be rolling and practicing rescues and so on, most people were in dry suits or similar, or at least many people were. I was in something similar, in a two-piece dry top and dry pants. Not because I was actually doing so much rolling or rescues, but because this time of year in September it starts getting cold in the water in the Baltic Sea. So, you know, if you do end up in the water, it's a lot more fun if you are actually well protected. These were not fully cold water conditions as it can get in Sweden yet, but it was kind of approaching the limit where it's already getting cold. So safety in that regard is always important. Anyway, there were other workshops such as navigation and different kinds of teamwork and leadership again. There were also speeches at the end of the evening, or presentations on environmental issues and sustainability, and an exciting presentation from one paddler who actually had paddled what I would call an extreme feat across the Swedish and Norwegian coastlines, and then also crossing back across land. So basically towing his or dragging his kayak above ground across mountains and whatnot, and then continuing on rivers, etc. And that was just way beyond what most of us would ever consider. I would say we saw some amazing video footage of that, and the fun part is at the end of that particular presentation, he actually had some auctions, as he called it, where he auctioned out a paddle and a PFD that he had used, or the PFD was used for training before this particular expedition. And basically the idea was that whichever paddler committed to the most hours that they would spend using this gear would win the item in question. So I actually answered the call when it came to the PFD, and as such I now have a nice new quality PFD which looks like this. So thank you very much, and I do intend to reach that target. I have 1 year to reach a certain number of hours paddling in this PFD supposedly. So that's just one unexpected aspect of it. But anyway, as I was saying, and as you can get from my general thoughts on this, I mean, these are off-the-cuff, non-scripted thoughts on an event of this kind. And again, the value is simply that it's fantastic to be among paddlers, many of these, in this case, being very experienced paddlers with a lot of experience and a wealth of knowledge, and also experiences from their actual trips. So for example, when it comes to safety, which was my theme, as I was conducting safety workshops and workshops on proactive and systematic safety efforts across a year as a kayak leader, then basically I was able to talk to people who actually had to handle incidents out in the archipelago, out at sea, on islands where people fell and injured themselves. Actually fell in 3 cases actually. People were unlucky enough to fall on their heads, so there was a head injury involved in all 3 cases, and all 3 cases involved rescues where basically the transport of the patient would have to be by helicopter because they were obviously out on islands, out at sea. So those are conversations you might not get to have every day, but in this case you get to meet people with other kinds of experiences. If you're not particularly interested in helicopter rescues, you might again be more interested in rolling techniques or paddling techniques of all kinds, whether it's sculling or high or low braces or whatever it might be, different ways of maneuvering and paddling efficiency and so on and so forth. All of this is basically stuff that you can get out of an event like this. And if it's not kayaking, like in this case, then it might be something else, like the other year where we were also video recording a canoe training camp. So all of a sudden we have whitewater involved, and many of the questions might be the same. Some of the paddling techniques obviously are different in case of portage and getting down a river and maneuvering the rapids and so on and so forth. But anyway, if you have an event nationally available where you are, it might not be immediately close to you, but it might be possible with some travel, then typically it's a good investment. You will receive a lot of contacts, connections with new people, other paddlers, if you're careful to make sure that you get their contact information and make some new friends, and that will be valuable for you as a paddler. You always get to meet some new people, and you get to meet maybe friends and paddlers you already know, which is rewarding as well, for sure. So it's a bit of a community, and as such, these kind of events, when you have the chance, it is worth the time. So in this case, we were here in Stensund, near Trosa on the east coast in Sweden, and we camped in our tents, just like you would as a kayaker or a kayak leader out in the archipelago or whatever, or along the coast during a paddling weekend if you're leading a trip. But in this case, we had this kind of site where all of the tents were, but we also had the advantage of that there was a castle nearby, which was the conference setting, so to speak. So while most of the workshops and activities were outdoor, just going out from shore and directly into the water or speaking near the water in groups, during the meals and such, we actually would go for breakfast and lunch and dinner to the food court or the dining hall here in this location. So that was a bit of extra luxury. Normally, as an outdoors person, I mean, you would have your field kitchen and you would cook your own food. And generally speaking, that works well during a paddling trip where, once you stop paddling or when you stop for lunch, you have enough time to cook your food and just sit down and eat it out in nature, which is nice. But in this case, the advantage was that we were actually inside, and we had enough time to we were able to save so much time by not having to cook our meals, but basically go up, have our food, and then get back to our kayaks. So that was quite nice. The event here was really a success. It was the first one for me of its kind with this particular event. But it's an annual thing, and many people have been to this event many times around and will be coming back as well. And we also had some night paddling with perfect conditions, dark with the stars visible above, and some moonlight, which was really nice out in the archipelago. It's something special when you're out on seawater and you see the moonlight shining down, and otherwise it's just dark and you see some islands around you and the water's, in this case, calm and such. It was really nice. So we had a lot of fun during this event, and so much learning was done. Credit to all of the organizers. Again, Carl Crawford, who was the lead organizer. This was his kind of final event before he retired from his position at the Swedish Outdoor Association after so many years, and he was celebrated for that. Then I also had the chance to talk to Ari Hultqvist, who will be taking over his position, or has taken over his position as coordinator for on national level for kayakers and so on, kayak leaders and kayaking activities in the Swedish Outdoor Association, Friluftsfrämjandet, nationally. So all of this, all in all, this was quite interesting, and it was a privilege to be here video documenting it and taking part in the activities as well. And some of these videos will be provided. Some of these videos are produced for the Swedish Outdoor Association as official video material from the event, and that might be distributed through the Swedish Outdoor Association, whereas this is just an unofficial video as a paddler in general who happened to be there at the event. But there is a video playlist on this channel, basically showing that kayak festival in Stensund. So if you'd like to see more short clip and such from the event, you can check out the playlist. And otherwise, I would like to thank everybody who was there during this event, making it such a success. All of the organizers, all of the paddlers, all of the staff and volunteers, and so on and so forth. It was a great experience, and if you have the opportunity to do something similar where you live, again, I highly recommend it. And if you are in Sweden and you're in contact with the Swedish Outdoor Association, of course, there are so many activities that you could get connected with, both paddling, kayaking in particular, and kayaking and canoeing, and many other outdoor activities. So that's available on the website Friluftsfrämjandet.se in Swedish. And I think that's about it. Those were some reflections on a great couple of days or 3 days on the Swedish East Coast, surrounded by kayakers and kayak leaders and instructors, and just a wealth of knowledge and experience, and so much fun on the water, in groups, and so many valuable discussions, so much learning, and valuable networking. So, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I wish you happy paddles, and as I always say, stay safe out there. And again, happy paddles. See you in other videos.